wall, we meet Scarlett, who is an archaeologist crossing the Syrian border into Iran. Despite the risks, she is trespassing in underground caves, due to be demolished, looking for the rose key. She finds a tablet in the wall with writing on that she breaks through. In the hidden room behind she finds the rose key, a large statue with writing on. Time is short because the explosives will be detonated shortly. She says she has to make a copy of the inscriptions. Her father spent his whole life looking for this. As she rushes out of the cave during the countdown, she sees a body hanging by the neck. There is a massive explosion, but she's able to make it out of the cave complex. Next time we meet Scarlett, she is being interviewed in Paris. She's talking about the search for the philosopher's stone which can give eternal life. We learn that her father was the preeminent alchemist in the world and also killed himself. She visits Nicolas Flamel's house in Tombstone, saying it is rumored he created the philosopher's stone. His tombstone is reportedly the key to the location of the philosopher's stone, but it was untranslatable until she found the rose key. It is now translatable into Aramaic, which she does not speak but knows a man who does. She takes us to find the man. He apparently broke into the church to repair its clock. He's not particularly interested in anything Scarlett has to say. Scarlett says she has a television crew, documenting her search for the philosopher's stone. She tells him that she has found the rose key but needs his help translating the Aramaic. He fixes the clock and it rings for the first time in 284 years. He agrees to help her translate, but that is it. George is able to get them access to Flamel's tombstone. Scarlett thinks that the key is on the back of the tombstone and takes it from the wall to inspect. George is not happy about this. There is nothing there, but she pulls a MacGyver and uses some chemicals nearby, which when lit reveal a hidden message. George translates the message. They work out that the location of the philosopher's stone is 741 feet below Flamel's tomb and they will need to explore the catacombs under Paris to get there. Scarlett goes on a tour of the catacombs to have a look what is down there. She works out where they are and says they have to go half a mile through this wall. A mysterious character tells them they need to find Papillon, who will show them the way. As she leaves, she looks back round to see the character has disappeared. George and Scarlett go to the club the mysterious man mentioned, to try and find Papillon. The first person they ask points them in his direction. A woman dressed in white is looking through the window at them. Scarlett asks Papillon to take them to the catacombs, but he says he is not a tour guide. She explains that she has found a secret tunnel but no one knows about and it is filled with treasure. Papillon laughs at her. He eventually says, if his friends can have half of the treasure they will take them down. Next day we meet Papillon's team, Zed and Suxi, getting their gear ready. Papillon has a nasty burn on his hand that Zed is reluctant to talk about. They make their way through a chain link fence and then down a railway track, being careful to avoid the police. At the entrance to the tunnel they put their headlamps on. George continues to say that he is not going with them. They go into the tunnel and find the entrance to the catacombs. Benji the videographer says they each have video cameras on their headgear. Out of the blue a policeman jumps Papillon. To escape they all run into the catacombs, including George, who did not want to go. We find out that George's little brother drowned in a cave when he was young. George is upset that he is down there and did not ask for it. They make their way further into the tunnels. They are starting to wade through water in the tunnels now. Papillon finds a burned out candle and says there are people down here. They find a room with some women in making spooky noises. The lead woman was at the nightclub dressed in white. They find a blocked up tunnel, which Scarlett says they need to go through, but Papillon says it's a bad place and people that go in there don't come out. Papillon said he had a friend who lived down there for years and went everywhere but that corridor. One day he went in there and has never been seen since. Instead, they take another way and climb over loads of bones. As Benji climbs through, he gets stuck and starts panicking. After struggling a while, the tunnel collapses and he just manages to get out. The group now find themselves back where they were, in the room with the bricked up passage, as if they went around in a circle. They are all shocked by this, but Benji loses it and attacks Papillon. Papillon explains that this is impossible. They decide to go through the bricked up passage, despite the earlier warnings. As they make their way through, they find one of Papillon's graffiti tags. He says he did not make it and has never been in here. They are all spooked by this. Then they hear a distant phone ringing, which they can't understand. Soon they oddly find a piano. George says they had a piano just like it when he was a kid, that he played with his brother. When he tries to play a tune, it has a dead key, exactly the same as the one when he was a kid. He says, "What is going on?" Papillon says they should not be there. The phone rings again. They have no other choice but to keep going. Scarlett starts heading for the sound of the phone that is continually ringing now. When they all arrive in the room with the phone, Scarlett decides to answer it. The distorted voice on the phone says, "Why won't you speak to me, Scarlett?" She hangs up abruptly. They hear a voice say, "You shouldn't be here." They look and there is a man standing there. The team recognize him as Latope. It is their friend who had disappeared in the tunnel. He says for them to follow him if they are looking to get out, which they are. They follow him down the corridor and the roof starts cracking and collapsing. He leads them into a room with a covered well in it. Once in the room, he starts removing the boards from the well and says they need to go down. Despite its depth, they decide to go down the well to find the secret chamber. All of a sudden, Benji comes flying down the well and stops just above George. He has burned his hands on the rope. They eventually come to a dead end and Papillon freaks out. They find an inscription, and from this workout there is a secret trap door, which they manage to open. They make their way into the next chamber. When they enter the chamber, they find the body of a Knight Templar, which has hardly decomposed. Scarlet finds more inscriptions, which leads her to believe they need to go deeper. They turn their lights off and find a light source in a pool of water. Scarlet ducks under the water into the next chamber, which has piles of gold and a painting on the wall with symbols. George finds Scarlet at the painting weeping, saying it is real. Papillon and his team flip out over the treasure. Scarlet determines that the sun in the painting is the philosopher's stone and prizes it free, while the others try to get at the treasure. As soon as they manage to pull the grate away, the ceiling starts collapsing. There have been numerous injuries and Lataupe has been buried under the rocks and left for dead. Suxi has a large gash on her arm. Scarlet grinds some philosopher's stone on her arm and within seconds it is completely healed and cleaned. After some looking, they find a hidden exit that takes them further down. And away they go. The next chamber they enter is just like the last, but everything is in reverse. When they look around, the passage they just came through is sealed. They go through the water passage into the chamber with the body of the Templar, but now the body is decomposed. They find Lataupe in the room seemingly uninjured, but when Suxi goes to speak to him, he grabs her and bashes her head in against a rock, killing her. The Philosopher's Stone is unable to bring her back to life. The remaining members keep moving. As George is moving through a tunnel, he can see his brother in a pool of water under some bones. He frantically tries to remove the bones, but Scarlet has to tell him that it's not real and he's hallucinating. George calms down somewhat and they keep moving. They hear eerie sounds coming from the tunnels. They come upon another chamber that has a car on fire in it. Papillon moves closer to the car and sees a boy sitting in there. It is the same boy that told Scarlet to look for Papillon in the nightclub. The boy looks at Papillon and Papillon protests that it was not his fault. Must have something to do with Papillon's burnt hand. An invisible force drags him towards the car and then the boy leans out and pulls him into the car. Papillon gets pulled into the car and the car collapses on itself and disappears. All is left is a pair of legs sticking out of the ground, and the rest of the team are unable to save Papillon. Papillon is dead. There are only 3 of them left now and they have to keep moving. They come to a room with somebody dressed in black robes sitting on a golden throne. As they move through, the being stands up and looks at them. All of a sudden, a face in the rock wall comes alive and attacks George, biting him on the neck. Zed and Scarlet pull him to safety. She tries to cure his injuries with the Philosopher's Stone, but it is not working. She realizes now that everything is back to front, that the stone does not work, so she decides to run the gauntlet and go back and get the real stone from the reverse treasure room. She makes the horror show of a journey, putting the stone she has back in the painting, but not taking any new stone. She makes her way back to Zed and George. As she's running back, she says, "As above so below, as I believe the world to be, so it is." She finds her father's hanging corpse on the way, and apologizes for not answering the phone the night he killed himself. The corpse disappears after she apologizes. Once she gets to George, she is able to lay her hands on his neck and cure him as if the stone was in her. George is not dead. As they are running through the corridors, they find another well going deep into the ground, and Scarlet suggests they should jump down the well, which George thinks is crazy. Scarlet says they have to rectify themselves. George feels guilty for not being there when his brother drowned, and Zed feels guilty over the child he denies. They all hold hands and jump down the well and fall for a long time until they crash at the bottom. They seem to be trapped in a small room at the bottom of the well with no way out. Zed starts loosing it. George finds a hole in the bottom of the chamber with a metal plate in. He removes the rocks to access the plate. They try and lift the plate out but cannot, but they are able to push it down, but when they let go of it, it slams back into place. With some effort, they manage to push it down and slide it out of the way. They crawl out of what turns out to be a manhole, to find themselves on the street in Paris near Notre Dame Cathedral. They all join together in a hug of relief. Thanks very much for watching. What did you think of As Above So Below? Let us know in the comments. Subscribe for more.